Hello everyone, welcome to Haunted Lullabies. Before you fall asleep, subscribe to this channel and please like the video. Also comment where you from and what time are you watching. The man under the streetlight. If you see someone standing perfectly still under a streetlight at night, don't look too long. And whatever you do, don't let them notice you noticed them. It started when Erin had to work late one night. She was the last one in the office. The glowing blue of her computer screen, the only light in a sea of darkness. The clock said 2:14 a.m. when she finally closed her laptop and grabbed her coat. Her car was parked 3 blocks away. Downtown was a ghost town at that hour, cold, empty, kind of silence that hums in your ears. She walked briskly, heels tapping too loudly against the cracked sidewalk. That's when she saw him. At the end of the block, under the only working streetlight, stood a man. He wasn't moving, not swaying, not shifting weight from foot to foot, just standing. He was too far away to make out details, but she could tell he was facing her, frozen, watching. Erin's pulse quickened. Maybe he was drunk, maybe he needed help, but something primal inside her screamed, "Keep walking." She crossed to the other side of the street, kept her eyes low, but as she passed, curiosity gnawed at her. She risked a glance. The man hadn't moved, but now she could see his face. Or rather, the lack of one. Where his features should have been, there was only smooth, pale skin, stretched too tightly across the bones of his skull. Her breath caught in her throat. She sped up, her keys clutched between her knuckles like a weapon. She dared not run. She didn't want him to know she had seen him. Finally, she reached her car, slamming the door shut, locking it instantly. Hands shaking, she started the engine and pulled out without looking back. The next night, she stayed late again, a tight deadline forcing her to. She parked closer this time, right by the building. No long walk, but when she exited the office, heart hammering in her chest, she saw him again, standing under a different streetlight this time. Closer, still perfectly still. She didn't dare look at his face again. She kept her eyes forward, practically running to her car, but it kept happening. Every night she stayed late. Every night he was there, under a different light, always a little closer, always facing her, always waiting. Finally, Erin decided to stay home for a few days. She told herself it was stress, hallucination, something rational. After 3 nights of restless sleep, she convinced herself it was over. She went back to work, left a little after midnight. The streets were empty again. No man under the streetlights. Relieved, she smiled. Maybe it had all been in her head. She unlocked her car, slid into the driver's seat, checked her rearview mirror. At first, she thought it was her mind playing tricks again, but no. There he was, sitting silently in her back seat. No face, no breath, no time to scream. The reflection that smiles first. Mirrors should always reflect you exactly. If your reflection ever moves before you do, run. Elena had never liked mirrors. As a child, she would drape towels over them at night, convinced something lurked behind the glass. But adulthood had dulled her fears. Mirrors were just mirrors, or so she thought. When she moved into her new apartment, she found an ornate antique mirror in the bedroom, a heavy, gilded thing bolted to the wall. She admired it once, thought it added character, and forgot about it. The first strange thing happened a week later. Getting ready for work, she leaned into the mirror to apply mascara, and in the reflection, she noticed something odd. Her hand was still, but the reflection's hand, just for a moment, trembled. Subtle, quick. She blinked and it was gone. Shaking it off, she continued her morning, laughing at herself for being paranoid. But the next night, she caught it again. While brushing her hair, she paused to sip her tea, and her reflection smiled. Slow, wide, deliberate, before her real face had even twitched. Frozen with horror, she stared. Her reflection simply stood there, smiling wider and wider, until its lips stretched unnaturally across its face. The lights flickered, the glass rippled. Heart pounding, Elena grabbed a sheet and threw it over the mirror, bolting from the room. She spent the night on the couch, trying to convince herself she was overtired. By morning, the mirror was uncovered again. The sheet lay shredded on the floor, as if torn apart from inside the glass. In desperation, Elena tried to move out, packed bags, booked a hotel. When she turned for one final glance at the room, she saw her reflection again, standing inside the mirror, now fully independent. It waved, and the worst part, she heard footsteps behind her, the exact sound of bare feet slapping the floor, approaching fast. The hotel manager swears Elena checked in that night, dragging a heavy suitcase, but she never entered her room. Only the mirror did. The bedside visitor. When you wake up at night and can't move, don't open your eyes, especially if you hear breathing. Samantha suffered from occasional sleep paralysis, so when she woke one night frozen in bed, she wasn't immediately alarmed. It happened. It would pass. Then she heard it. Breathing. Slow. Shallow. Right by her face. Fear surged, but she kept her eyes closed tight, remembering the advice she'd read online. Stay calm. Don't panic. Don't engage. The breathing grew louder, wet and ragged, as if the thing beside her was sniffing. She tried to scream. Nothing. Her muscles refused to obey. She willed herself to stay unconscious, to wait it out. Then she felt fingers brushing her cheek. Long, cold fingers that tapped gently, almost playfully. Tears leaked from the corners of her eyes. Minutes passed, or maybe hours, and finally, mercifully, she felt her body again, gasping, sobbing. She bolted upright and turned on the lamp. Empty room. Shaking, she checked every closet, under the bed, the window locks. Nothing. When she finally crawled back under the covers, exhausted, she noticed something. Tiny, muddy footprints leading from a window to her bed and stopping right at her pillow. That night was just the first. Every week since then, She wakes up paralyzed again, the breathing always closer, the fingers always bolder. And now, sometimes, even when she's fully awake, she can still hear it, right behind her, smiling. The second voice. If you ever hear yourself talking in another room, don't go check. It's already too late. It started on a rainy Tuesday, just after midnight. Sarah was brushing her teeth when she heard her boyfriend, Daniel, call from the bedroom. "Hey, can you bring me some water?" Mouth full of foam, she grunted in agreement, rinsed, and grabbed a glass. As she turned the corner into their room, she froze. Daniel was already there, fast asleep. She stared at him for a moment, confused. Maybe he had called and then fallen asleep quickly? She shrugged it off, left the water by the bed, and crawled under the covers. That night, she woke up to whispering. 2 voices. One was Daniel's. The other sounded just like her own. They were speaking softly, laughing sometimes, having a conversation she couldn't quite make out. When she sat up and turned on the bedside lamp, Daniel stirred awake, groggy and confused. "What's wrong?" he asked. "You were talking in your sleep," she whispered, heart hammering. He rubbed his eyes. I wasn't dreaming," he said slowly. "I thought I heard you talking to someone." Their apartment is small. No one else could be there. No one should be there. But even now, Sarah swears, sometimes when she's alone, she hears herself laughing softly in the next room. The roommate agreement. The stranger you share a home with might not be alive. You might have already signed the lease with a ghost. When Lana moved to the city for grad school, she needed a cheap apartment fast. Craigslist was a gamble, but she found a place, a small 2-bedroom, dirt cheap, with a quiet roommate named Mia. Mia was polite. She kept to herself, paid rent on time. Perfect. The first weird thing Lana noticed was that Mia never ate. Her side of the fridge was bare except for a few dusty cans. Sometimes at night, Lana would hear her walking around the kitchen, but in the morning, nothing had moved. Then Lana found the note. It was slipped under her door one night, scrawled in shaky handwriting. "Don't believe her. She doesn't live here." Heart pounding, Lana burst into Mia's room, but it was empty. Perfectly made bed, no clothes, no personal belongings, as if no one had ever lived there. Lana tried to leave, but the door wouldn't open. The windows, too. Trapped. The final straw came when she woke up to see Mia standing silently at the foot of her bed, her face pale, her eyes sunken. Mia smiled. I needed a roommate, she whispered. You agreed. When Lana screamed, no one heard her, and somewhere, even now, that Craigslist ad is still up, looking for a new tenant. Whispers in the baby monitor. Sometimes the static on a baby monitor isn't just noise. Sometimes it's a warning. Anna and Mark were thrilled when they brought their newborn son, Lucas, home from the hospital. Like good parents, they installed a baby monitor, one of the high-tech ones that picks up even the faintest sounds. The first few nights were normal, soft breathing, occasional gurgles, but on the fourth night, they heard something else, a low whispering, like someone talking directly into the microphone. The words were distorted, but Anna swore she heard the name Lucas repeated several times. Mark laughed it off. Radio interference, he said. Old monitors pick up random signals. But the next night, Anna woke to the monitor buzzing again, and this time she heard singing. A lullaby, off-key, slow, not her voice, not Mark's. She sprinted into the nursery, but Lucas was sleeping peacefully. No one else was there. The following evening, Mark decided to stay up and listen. He tuned into the monitor around midnight. For a while, nothing but static. Then, faintly, he heard knocking. 5 knocks. Pause. 5 knocks again. He turned pale. That's how his mother used to call him inside as a kid. 5 sharp knocks. He rushed to the nursery. Empty, except for a handprint. A small, gray, child-sized handprint smeared across the inside of the window. Lucas slept soundly, but when they played back the monitor recording, right before the knocks, a voice could be heard whispering. He's mine now. The house that watches you. Some houses don't just have a presence. They have eyes. It was supposed to be a fresh start. After the divorce, Jacob needed somewhere cheap and quiet. The old Victorian on the edge of town seemed perfect, creaky, but solid. The first time he walked through the front door, he felt something click in the air, like an invisible hand closing around him. He brushed it off as stress. He didn't notice the subtle things at first. How the living room window always seemed to face him, no matter where he stood, or how the hallway mirror occasionally showed a second reflection, not standing beside him, but standing inside him, wearing his body like a suit. At night, the creaks of the house weren't random. They were deliberate, patterned, like footsteps pacing back and forth just outside his bedroom door. Once, half asleep, he opened his eyes and saw the walls breathing, expanding and contracting, slowly, rhythmically, as if the whole house was alive. One evening, Jacob found a door he swore hadn't been there before. A small, narrow door under the staircase. Drawn to it, he opened it and found a staircase spiraling downward into darkness. No flashlight. No phone, just him and the oppressive feeling of being watched. He took a step down. The door slammed shut behind him. He's been missing for weeks now. But sometimes, people walking past the house swear they see a figure in the upstairs window. A man with wide, terrified eyes, mouthing the same word over and over. Help. The clock that counts down. If you ever find a clock counting down in your home, get out before it hits 0. When Marcus moved into his new apartment, he noticed an old clock nailed into the wall above the fireplace. Its face was strange. No numbers, just a single hand ticking backward very slowly. Curious, he tried to remove it, but it wouldn't budge, no matter how much he pulled. The landlord claimed it was part of the charm and told him to leave it alone. The days passed. Marcus noticed the hand moving faster. It wasn't keeping time, it was counting down. He woke one night to find the clock hand spinning violently. For hours left, weird things started happening, knocking at the walls, whispering from the vents, shadows flitting just out of sight. Panicked, Marcus called his friend to help him leave. But when they entered the living room, the clock had stopped at exactly 1 minute left, and then it struck midnight. The walls buckled outward, as if something enormous was pressing from the other side. The lights burst, the air filled with a deafening roar, and from the cracks in the wall, thin, blackened hands clawed their way into the room. Marcus never made it out. Now, the clock sits in the empty apartment, ticking backward again, waiting for the next tenant. The passenger never stopped for someone thumbing a ride at night. Sometimes they're not trying to go anywhere. Karen was driving home late after visiting her sister, a long stretch of lonely highway cutting through the woods. At around 2 a.m., she saw a figure on the side of the road, hand outstretched for a ride. He was soaked from the rain, hunched over, harmless looking. Against her better judgment, Karen pulled over. The man said nothing, just nodded and slid into the back seat. Water dripped from his clothes, pooling on the floor. She tried to make small talk. Where was he headed? No answer. When she glanced in the mirror, she realized with a jolt that she couldn't see his reflection. Heart hammering, she gripped the wheel tighter. She didn't know what to do. She didn't want to upset him, but she needed to get him out. At the next town, she pulled into a gas station and told him, "This is your stop." No response. She turned around to insist, but the back seat was empty. Just a pool of water. Relieved, she exhaled and got out to pump gas. That's when she saw it. A handprint smeared across the inside of her windshield on the driver's side. Voices from the drain. Some pipes carry more than water. Some pipes carry the dead. Toby first heard the whispering while brushing his teeth. At first, he thought it was just the house settling, the old plumbing moaning and rattling, but when he leaned down to spit, he could swear he heard a voice, soft, pleading, repeating the same words, "Let me out." He jerked back, heart pounding. Maybe it was his imagination. The next night, he heard it again. Only this time, he could make out more. "I'm stuck. Help me. Please." He spent the night on the couch, bathroom door closed tight. A week later, the voices grew louder, more desperate. He started hearing footsteps in the bathroom when no one was there. Once, he found the mirror fogged up, a single handprint pressed against it from inside. Finally, unable to take it anymore, Toby called a plumber. The plumber ran a camera down the pipes. He frowned. "I think there's something stuck down here," he said. Toby watched the black and white footage on the screen. At first, just pipes and grime, and then a face pressed against the lens, mouth open wide in a silent scream. The plumber yanked the camera out in terror. Toby hasn't used the bathroom since, but at night, lying in bed, can still hear it, scraping, clawing, coming closer. The birthday candle. Blowing out a candle on your birthday makes a wish. Lighting the wrong candle makes a deal. For her 16th birthday, Emma's grandmother gave her an old, handmade candle. "Make a wish," her grandmother said, "but be careful what you ask for." Emma laughed it off, lit the candle, and made the usual teenage wish. "I want to be beautiful. I want everyone to love me." The candle flickered strangely, the flame dancing unnaturally, almost alive. The next morning, everything changed. At school, people stared at her with wide, unblinking eyes. Boys who had never noticed her followed her down the halls. Girls whispered behind their hands, jealousy dripping from their voices. But it wasn't admiration. It was obsession. By the end of the week, her best friend tried to stab her, screaming that she couldn't stand looking at her. The boy who sat behind her in math class slashed his own wrist and wrote her name in blood on the wall. Terrified, Emma tried to blow out the candle, but it wouldn't go out. It just burned endlessly. In desperation, she called her grandmother. "You didn't make a wish," the old woman said coldly. "You made an offering." The candle still burns on Emma's dresser, and with each passing day, her face becomes less human, more monstrous, as if the candle is burning her soul away. Last call at Milligan's. Some bars stay open long after they should have closed. Milligan's Pub was a dive bar on the outskirts of town. Kind of place that smelled like spilled whiskey and regret. It had been closed for years, condemned after a fire that killed several patrons. But last Friday, Jared and his friends saw the neon, open sign flickering through the fog. They laughed and decided to check it out. Inside, the place was immaculate. Polished wood, fresh kegs, music on an old jukebox. The bartender was a tall man with slick-back hair and a crooked smile. "First round's on the house," he said. The drinks were strong. The music was old but good. And everyone else in the bar, maybe a dozen people, seemed friendly. Too friendly. When Jared asked where the bathroom was, the bartender pointed him down a narrow, dark hallway. As he walked, Jared noticed something off. The walls were charred, the floor sticky with something dark, and the air smelled of burnt flesh. When he turned back, the hallway was gone. Only endless darkness behind him. He ran, bursting back into the bar. But now, the patrons were different. Burned, melted, twisted, still holding their drinks, still smiling. The bartender raised his glass in a toast. Welcome to Milligan's. You're staying forever. A room with no doors. Every building has doors and windows. If you find a room with neither, it's not a room. It's a trap. When college students Tara, Mike, and Dev found the abandoned sanitarium on the edge of town, it felt like the perfect place for Halloween dare. 1 hour inside, Mike said, first one who chickens out buys dinner. The place reeked of mildew and rusted metal, peeling wallpaper, rooms full of rotted beds and forgotten wheelchairs, dust thick enough to write your name in. Tara was the first to hear it, a rhythmic tapping sound coming from upstairs. They followed it, laughing nervously, egging each other on. At the end of a long hallway, they found it. A plain wooden door, freshly painted, standing closed. No hinges, no knob, just there, daring each other. Mike pushed hard, and the door creaked open, revealing a small room. Empty, bare concrete, not even a light fixture. They stepped inside, and the door slammed shut behind them. Laughing at first, they assumed it was just a draft, until they realized something bone-chilling. The door was gone, vanished, just smooth, seamless wall all around. Panic set in. They screamed, kicked, pounded the walls, nothing. Hours passed. The air grew colder. Tara checked her phone, dead. Dev checked his watch. The hand spun wildly, broken. Whispers began then, circling them, coming from nowhere. Soft voices repeating the same sentence, over and over. You shouldn't be here. You don't belong. The wall started to close in, inch by inch. In the final moments, as the room squeezed tighter around them, Tara realized it wasn't a room at all. It was a mouth, and they had just walked willingly into its open jaws. The man at the end of the hallway. If you see someone waiting at the end of a hallway, unmoving, don't approach. If you approach, you belong to him. Sarah loved her new apartment. Affordable, central, with old-world charm. The hallway was long and dimly lit, stretching forever into a gloom that the old light bulbs couldn't seem to pierce. The first time she saw the figure, she assumed it was a neighbor, standing there, far at the end, silhouetted, facing her, unmoving. She raised a hand awkwardly in greeting. No response. Weird. The next night, he was closer, still facing her, still utterly motionless. And when she tried to look at his face, there was nothing, just a blur like static. She told the landlord. He chuckled, brushing it off. Oh, him? That's just the hallway man. He's part of the building. Not funny. Sarah tried to ignore it, but every night, the figure inched closer, a few steps closer, and the closer he got, the colder her apartment grew, no matter how high she turned up the heat. Finally, desperate, she confronted him. She walked down the hallway, trembling, each step echoing against the cracked tile. She called out, demanded to know what he wanted. The figure opened his arms. and she understood too late that the hallway wasn't a passage. It was a trap. The building was his lair, and she had made the fatal mistake. She noticed him. She approached him. She belonged to him. Now, when new tenants move in, they sometimes spot a second figure in the hallway. Smaller, hesitant. Sarah, still trapped. Still trying to warn them before it's too late. The Girl on Channel 58. When a TV picks up a channel you don't recognize, never watch, never answer. Devin was flipping through late-night TV, half asleep, when he stumbled onto Channel 58. He didn't have a Channel 58. No show title, no commercials. Just a grainy feed of a little girl standing in a sunlit field, smiling straight into the camera. Unnerved, he tried to change the channel. Nothing. The remote wouldn't work. The girl raised her hand in a slow wave. Then she whispered, "I see you." Hard hammering, Devin yanked the power cord. The screen went black, but the next night, the TV turned on by itself. Channel 58. The girl was closer to the camera this time. The field around her was darker, as if the sun was setting. She smiled wider. Her teeth were wrong. Too sharp, too many. He threw a blanket over the TV. That night, his phone buzzed at 3 a.m. Unknown number. One text. A photo. The girl, standing outside his front door. Devin moved out the next day. But wherever he goes, new city, new apartment, new devices, there's always a moment, late at night, when the screen flickers to life. Channel 58, and she's always closer. The house that followed her home. Not all haunted houses are stationary. Some choose you. Rachel had always loved abandoned buildings, photographing their decay and mystery. She found an old farmhouse at the edge of town, forgotten, swallowed by weeds, boarded windows, collapsing roof. She spent an afternoon inside, taking photos of peeling wallpaper, broken furniture, the long, cracked staircases leading to nowhere. At one point, her camera captured something odd. A shadow in the corner of an empty room. Too tall, too thin. She chalked it up to lighting and finished the shoot. That night at home, she noticed a smell. Rotten wood, mildew, earthy, sickly sweet. She tore the house apart looking for the source, but there was none, until she realized the floorboards were different. Older, warped. The wallpaper was peeling, even though she had painted it months ago. Her apartment was changing, becoming the farmhouse. Each morning, more of her walls rotted, windows splintered. The sound of groaning would fill the night. One evening, she woke up to find her bed surrounded by weeds and tall, dead grass. Her bedroom ceiling sagged, cracked open like a yawning mouth. The house hadn't stayed behind. It had decided it liked her. It came home with her. Now her apartment is just a shell, a hollow echo of that dying farmhouse. And in the corners, if you look quickly enough, you can see the shadows still watching her. waiting for her to rot too. The man who wrote tomorrow. Some people don't just predict the future, they control it. Ben always loved exploring used bookstores. The dust, the hidden corners. It felt like stepping back in time. In one dark, cluttered shop, he found a strange book tucked behind other, more normal volumes. Leather-bound. No title. No author. Just a blank cover. Curious, he opened it. Inside, handwritten and slanted, fading ink, were descriptions of small, random events. The young man in the yellow jacket slips and breaks his ankle at 2:13 p.m. The waitress at Main Street Cafe forgets an order and cries in the bathroom at 3:46 p.m. Ben flipped through pages and pages of similar, odd entries, each dated for the next day. He laughed, assuming it was some weird novelty book, but something made him pocket it. The next day, while walking downtown, Ben froze. At exactly 2:13 p.m., a man in a yellow jacket ran past him, slipped on the curb, and fell, screaming in pain. Ben's heart raced. At 3:46 p.m., he stood outside Main Street Cafe. Inside, waitress dropped a tray, her face crumpling into tears. It was real. It was all real. Ben raced home, flipping further ahead. Tomorrow's entry. Benjamin Owens falls from his 4-story window at 7:12 p.m., declared dead on the scene. His blood turned to ice. He lived on the 4th floor. Panicking, Ben tried to destroy the book. It wouldn't burn. It wouldn't tear. The ink bled through whatever page he tried to ruin, rewiring itself. He locked all his windows, barricaded himself in. 6:50 p.m. 6:55 p.m. The building creaked around him. Then 7:10 p.m. His phone buzzed. A text. Unknown number. Come look outside. Shaking, Ben approached the window, triple-checking the locks. Nothing. Then, faintly, he heard his own name whispered from below, drawn forward despite himself. He leaned closer to the glass, and the window shattered inward. Invisible hands yanked him forward. Neighbors reported hearing a strange laughter after he hit the pavement, like someone had just finished a good book. The 7th step. In some places, the world is thinner. The wrong step can pull you through. Ella loved jogging in the woods near her house. Same trail every day, same rhythm. She knew every route, every twist, every worn path. One afternoon, as twilight fell, she noticed something strange. A new staircase, right in the middle of the trail. Old wood, 7 steps, leading upward to nowhere. No sign it had been built recently. No footprints, no hammering, just there, feeling adventurous. She climbed it. First step, fine. Second, creaked. Third, the air grew colder. By the 4th step, her vision blurred slightly, like heat distortion. At the fifth step, she heard a distant whisper, her name. On the sixth step, she felt dizzy. She hesitated before the seventh. Something deep in her bones warned her don't, but she ignored it, laughed at herself, stepped up. The world tilted. Everything went gray, then black, then different. When she blinked, she stood in the same woods, but wrong. The trees bent unnaturally, the trunks twisting into grotesque, humanoid shapes. The sky bled red and purple. The air smelled of copper and ash. Something was watching her. Something many. Panicking, Ella leapt down the steps, trying to return. But when she looked back, the staircase was gone. Now she runs still, somewhere out there, on trails that never end, under skies that never brighten. Sometimes, if you're quiet on a foggy evening, you can hear footsteps behind you, and a voice, very small and broken, begging, "Don't step up, please." The phone booth. Some phones ring long after they've been disconnected. Eddie was walking home late when he heard it. Payphone ringing. Strange. Payphones were almost extinct. He found it tucked in an alley, illuminated by a flickering street lamp. The phone rang insistently. Something in him, maybe curiosity, maybe something else, made him answer. "Hello." Static. Then a voice, breathy, wet, desperate. "Don't let them see you. They're hunting tonight." Click. The line went dead. Chilled, Eddie backed away, but noticed something horrifying. A crowd at the alley entrance. Silent, motionless, figures in old-fashioned clothes. Sunken eyes. They just stood there watching, heart pounding. He ducked behind a dumpster, barely daring to breathe. Minutes passed, hours maybe. Every so often, a payphone would ring again, and each time, Eddie would hear a new warning. "Don't cough. Don't blink too fast. Don't think about leaving." If he obeyed, the figure stayed still. If he faltered, even for a second, they crept closer. At dawn, the figures finally dissolved into mist. Eddie staggered home. But at night, every night, his own phone now rings once, just once, at 3:07 a.m. And he knows better than to answer, because he remembers the last thing the voice told him before he hung up. Next time, they'll come inside. The Whisper Woods. In some forests, the trees don't just sway in the wind, they whisper warnings. Tom and his friends were drunk when they decided to take a shortcut through Burma Woods, the old patch of trees the locals warned about. "You'll hear your own name," the bartender had said grimly. "And if you answer, you'll stay." Of course, they laughed it off. The woods were dark and choked with mist. No clear trail, just brambles and ancient trunks gnarled like crippled hands. Halfway through, Tom heard it, his own voice, faint, desperate, calling from deep among the trees. "Tom, please, help me." He froze. It wasn't an echo. It wasn't a trick of the mind. It was real. His friends yanked him forward, muttering about hallucinations. But as they pushed on, each of them heard their own voices too, crying, begging, sometimes even laughing in cruel, twisted tones. The woods began to shift, subtly at first, trees leaning the wrong way, paths looping back onto themselves. The air thickened, heavy with rot. Then came the lights, distant lanterns swinging between the trees, drawing them off the trail. Shapes danced around the edges of their vision, thin-limbed things with too many joints. By morning, only Tom staggered out of the forest. Mud caked his legs. His hands were raw, as if he had been clawing at the ground. He still hears the woods sometimes, when he closes his eyes. His friends' voices calling from somewhere deep inside. They're waiting, and one day soon, they'll find a way back out through him. The paintings that watch. Some art isn't meant to be seen. Some art sees you back. Liam loved flea markets, searching for weird paintings to decorate his apartment. One Sunday, he found a small oil painting of a mansion, elegant, towering, shrouded in mist. In the foreground stood a tiny figure with its back turned, staring up at the house. The seller shrugged when Liam asked where it came from. No memory of buying it, just appeared at my stand. Charmed by the eerie vibe, Liam bought it and hung it above his bed. That night, he dreamed of walking toward the mansion, thick fog swallowing his footsteps. Each night after, the dreams grew longer. He would get closer to the house, step by step. The figure by the door turned slightly each time, slowly revealing her face. And every morning, the painting changed. The mist thinned. The house became clearer. The figure's face more defined and horrifying. Sallow skin, hollow eyes, a mouth sewn shut with black thread. By the fifth night, Liam stood at the mansion door in his dream. It opened. Inside, he saw copies of himself, hung on walls like paintings, their mouths moving in silent screams. The figure stepped aside, welcoming him in. The next morning, Liam's bed was empty. The painting, it now showed two figures outside the mansion, one small, one newly arrived. And in the flea market that weekend, a new painting appeared on the same seller's table, of a foggy mansion, waiting for its next owner. Clockmaker's curse. When time stops in one place, it doesn't mean you're safe. It means you're trapped. In the center of a sleepy town sat Arlen's clock shop, ancient, cluttered, and oddly timeless. Ellie was drawn to it by the strange rumor. Nobody ever saw the old man leave. Nobody ever saw customers go in either. She stepped inside on a rainy afternoon. The smell of old wood and brass oil filled her nose. Clocks lined the walls, hundreds ticking in perfect, eerie unison. An old man with milky eyes greeted her. Looking for something special? In the back, she found a curious clock, tarnished silver with a cracked face. The hand spun wildly, refusing to settle. She laughed. "It's broken." The clockmaker's smile widened impossibly. "It's not broken, dear. It's waiting." He insisted she take it. No charge. That night, the clock began chiming at random hours. Stranger still, every time it rang, Ellie lost time. One moment she'd be brushing her hair, blink, and she'd be outside, barefoot in the rain. Another moment, she'd be eating dinner, blink, and it was midnight, and all the food was rotten. Desperate, she returned to the shop, but found only a boarded-up ruin. Neighbors claimed it had been abandoned for decades. The clocks inside were still ticking, though, and somewhere through the boarded windows, she thought she saw herself, dozens of versions of herself, stuck in frozen moments, staring blankly back at her. The real horror dawned on her too late. She hadn't escaped the clockmaker's curse. She was still inside. The wrong grave. Some graves are empty because their owners aren't done yet. Leo liked wandering through old cemeteries, reading the headstones. On one such walk, he found a grave half dug up, fresh dirt piled high beside a yawning black hole. The headstone read simply, "Here lies no one." Curious and stupid, Leo peered inside. It was empty. Shrugging, he moved on, but as he turned to leave, he heard something dragging behind him. Soft, persistent. He whipped around. Nothing there. Just faint trails in the dirt, as if something had slithered after him. At home, he found mud on his shoes and muddy fingerprints on his walls. The next day, bruises bloomed on his legs, hand-shaped and furious. At night, he heard it under his bed, scratching, whispering. He realized with mounting terror, the grave hadn't been waiting for someone to be buried. It had been waiting for him to dig it up. And whatever he set loose wasn't looking for a grave anymore. It was looking for a new body to inhabit, preferably one that walked and screamed. The wrong door. Some doors lead outside. Some doors lead deeper in. Mallory loved exploring abandoned buildings with her brother Jason. When they found the Asher Mill, half burned, half collapsed, they couldn't resist. Inside, soot-covered corridors twisted endlessly. Floorboards creaked under every cautious step. Jason found a heavy iron door at the back of the mill. Unlike the others, it was pristine. No rust, no graffiti, a simple brass sign. Exit. Laughing, Jason pulled it open and vanished into the blackness beyond. Mallory screamed and lunged after him, but the door slammed shut. When she yanked it back open, there was no hallway, just another door, and another, each door labeled exit, each leading to another empty room, another echoing silence. Time blurred. Her phone battery died. Hunger gnawed at her. Through the endless doors, she sometimes glimpsed Jason, but twisted wrong, his arms too long, his mouth stitched closed. Still, he mouthed a single word over and over. Leave. She couldn't. The doors went on forever. The mill still stands. If you find it, and if you hear someone pounding on a distant iron door, don't open it. It might be her, or what's left of her.